Thank you very much. Very good morning to all the distinguished delegates, my colleagues on the desk for this two-day conclave. And I think the perspective has been put across most eminently by our two very distinguished speakers who are on the job. And I, of course, am a fossil, not a fuel yet, but I can only say that the country is in safe hands with the regulator as well as the researcher. A very balanced approach to the whole sector, immensely pleasing to me. And also a balance of genders that we were talking in the morning, that I think we need to, next time we need to have this hall filled with a lot of other ladies. I think that is when the urja of the country will be really going forward. Well, this event of ET, which is, I think, a very, very significant event, has begun today, and talking about gas. I think at the very outset, I think it's been very clear that when we talk of gas, it's not only from the fossil fuel that we're talking about. We've got to think of gas in a larger context of gas from fossil fuels, which is a much cleaner way of using our fossil fuels, much more versatile. And I think the environment consciousness is always there. The other is our biofuel, which, when I began my active service in the IAS in 73, 74, we had a huge movement of biogas. And that was connectivity of our villages, providing them with clean fuels. That is what we can never forget. And I think this can be done on a much larger scale. That time it was animal waste. Today it is vegetable produce, which can produce all these fuels and gas. And now, of course, hydrogen, the elements of nature from water. So all this constitutes gas, and I think it would be extremely myopic to think that we are talking only of petroleum gas and should talk only of petroleum gas. Gas in any form. But the principles of attaining that objective continue to be the same. I think you need proper financing, you need a proper infrastructure, and I think both speakers have very eminently brought that out. And this figure of 15%, which keeps coming up for a gas-based economy, as chairing the India Energy Forum for 4 years, we took upon ourselves the task of producing a report on a gas-based economy. To be very frank with you, there was not much clarity what a gas-based economy means. But we could think of an announcement by the government that we will go up to 15%. Well, why 15? I think in today's context, maybe that figure has to be revised to a much higher figure. But we were only around just over 6% that time. And China was not too far ahead, but moving far ahead. Now, there was only one state in India which was far ahead at about 23%, I think, and that was Gujarat. And the factor which was there, besides it having some of its own resources, sea-based, location, could import, was a vast network of gas pipelines. Gas pipelines are akin to electricity transmission wires. Unless you have that connectivity to the consumer and a liberal connectivity to whoever you want to bring into the grid, that can never happen. Because through pipelines is the most effective and efficient way of carrying that gas across. If you are doing it by motorized transport, it is uneconomic, and I think it produces much more pollution. So that infra that Vartika was talking about is extremely important. We need wise regulators. We have a very wise one now there. Luckily, he's worked in the gas sector. You have to ensure proper pricing. But proper pricing is not only for the producer, it has to be for the consumer also. It has to be a fair price, I would say. You don't want to kill the producer, you don't want to kill the consumer. At the same time, how much can the economy subsidize and for how long? That we have to keep in view also. So you come down to efficiency. And I think efficiency is a factor that we must always keep in mind, and that's a factor that when we choose to go in for a particular technology or for a particular mode of transportation, we've got to keep that in mind. Absolutely. Now, pipelines. Within the country, yes, we have the freedom. We are doing a whole lot of new pipelines across. And a lot of the city gas has reached many, many towns today. And people are seeing the health benefits of it. The woman at the home who was subject to all kinds of fumes, including my own mother in that generation, find the kitchens are so much cleaner now. I think that's the way we have to go forward. But when we are getting gas from abroad, we've seen that the transnational pipelines run into huge problems. I had occasion while in the Petroleum Ministry to go and negotiate gas from Myanmar. But that time, bring it to Delhi. How do you cross Bangladesh, which was not very friendly at that point of time? I said, let's put it in the northeast. But that was yet to come because China grabbed it before us. So you've got to move fast. The other is, I also had occasion to go to Iran for the Iran pipeline. But there was a P in between. And wherever there has been a P, whether it is TAPI or IPI or whatever it has not happened. Somehow we must do some yagya or some shloks for of getting over that P pipeline in a P country. So what do? We can't sit quietly. We must make transnational pipelines. Countries have done it, and we must do that, I think, sooner than later. You've seen the criticality of gas pipelines and the supplies in the Ukraine conflict. One conflict that has exposed the hypocrisy of the developed world. I was just sharing with Vartika, France, which used to teach us nuclear, has fired its coal-based electricity plants. Necessity is not only the mother of invention, necessity forces you to do things that are absolutely necessary for protecting the population. So I think transportation, availability, research development, getting into new modes. We'll be honoring some of the very good entrepreneurs today. But without research and development, we're not going to reach very far, I can assure you. And I keep saying that where India has failed is that our expenditure on research and development and deployment has been extremely weak. Countries like Israel, Germany, Japan, which were almost at the same level when we were independent, have surged far ahead because their expenditure in these fields has gone up many folds. The last point I'll say is financing. And I think that's an issue. I'm out of government, I have no hesitation in saying that. Our oil and gas companies were financially well off and rich. The surpluses that they created through more efficient functioning, I think ought to have been utilized to develop more projects abroad, within the country. These are national assets, and these would have stood the country in much greater benefit than we have today. So I would say governments should insist that our energy companies invest in research, development, and deployment. That is a must. Revenues you can take, but in the long term, I think this is something that we need to do. I would congratulate the organizers for having organized this conclave, and I would expect each one of you to go back with this resolve that the very wise two lectures, I would say, not only talks, because they were very, very comprehensive, they should guide us into future. And please set a target for yourself that we've got to become a leader, a world leader in whatever we are doing. And that is not going to happen unless we deploy our funds, our energies in the right place and at the right time. Thank you very much for giving us this session. Thank you very much, Sudhir, for inviting me.